And we're live. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm here to answer any questions you might have about probably the projects you're working on, whether it's software related or entrepreneurship related, or if you're looking for a job. Let's talk. I want to answer questions that you may have for whatever it is that you're doing, and if I can, provide any assistance whatsoever, I'd be really interested in doing so. I'm definitely trying to do these live streams a little bit more frequently so I can get to know you guys a little better, right? That's kind of the point for me to do this, is to hear what your questions are so I can potentially help solve them in real time, or just get to know you guys better. That's the point. Because I've been lucky enough to do this job for some time, but I definitely don't spend enough time with you guys answering questions, chatting with you, all of that. So feel free to ask any questions that you have, any of them whatsoever. I think I have the wrong category. That's weird. Like defaulted to this other category. Okay, just switched it. Not that probably doesn't matter whatsoever. You know what I mean? But definitely tell me where you guys are from. I'd love to hear about that. Let me know what projects you might be working on. What's missing from YouTube? That's another thing. Like, what educational content is missing from YouTube? Not necessarily me, and certainly not necessarily things that I'm, covering, because there's a lot of things in technology that are super, super interesting that, there's got to be more to it, right? There's got to be more content out there that we can always produce. And I think the other benefit of, being on YouTube is that we can find other YouTubers who are going to be starting to teach, because um, if you haven't tried to teach anything, but especially something you're really interested in, I really, really encourage you, because it brings you down this rabbit hole of like just, loving that topic that much more potentially. Anyways, so great to have you guys here. Lord Full Stack. Hey, what's up? Yes, we are here again. Armoth, hello, welcome. Or is it Kenneth? Do I reverse the order there? Curious about that. Waiting for a Django GraphQL course. Thanks. Maybe some point. Hey, what's up? How's it going? From Nigeria. Hello. Let's see. Hey, how's it going? And you want me to come to India? Maybe someday. I've got young kids, so it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But yeah, it's at some point it probably will happen. Uh, thanks for sharing. Let's see here. Daniel from Kenya. Nice to meet you. Glenn from Papua New Guinea. Nice. I think that's the first person I had. It's 12 a.m. here now. Oh, getting late. It's probably too late for an India live stream, maybe, or parts of it at least. What are my thoughts on Red Hat and Cloud Native? Red Hat in what context? Cloud Native makes a lot of sense to me. Stuff like Kubernetes, I'm very, very interested in, and actively doing all sorts of stuff with that. Red Hat has a lot of different services that they do. So let me know what you are referring to in particular. You want to start working on an escrow service. What is your advice? What kind of escrow service? Like, what is it that they are purchasing? Because you're going to be holding some dollar amount for them, right? Is that the point? Anyways, hello, nothing from Nepal. Nice. Peter, what's up? Can you apply for an internship in learning phase? Honestly, if you're not learning, regardless of how long you've been doing something, you're probably not doing it right? Or you're probably not going to move up, is kind of the point. So you're nonstop learning. So yes, absolutely apply when you are still learning, because there's value that every person can bring. And hopefully while you're learning and also doing an internship, you can kind of see things that maybe other people on the team don't see, just because you don't understand. So you can ask a lot of questions. Suggestions for learning Kubernetes: start with Docker. So if you don't know how to, build containers and run containers, start there. Once you do that, move on to Docker Compose, which is not a whole lot different than Docker itself. Once you do that, then you're going to want to move into Kubernetes and come back on a live stream. Let me know, or just shoot me a message if you need advice from there. I think actually I know I'm going to have a ton of resources to answer this question in the near future. So what I just mentioned is where I would start if I was you, if you don't already know those things. Whole India is between 11:30 and 12:30. Got it. So a lot of people are probably sleeping right now. Hey, from Greece. Nice. What's up, Andreas? Would I consider making a Django React integrated inside Django with a new version? Perhaps at some point I need to do that. I think the thing is, like, React and Django are great, but you don't necessarily, either one doesn't need the other, right? They can work in tandem, but they don't need to. So integrating them hasn't changed a whole lot from my previous versions. That's to be said, React has evolved a little bit, and so has Django, but the actual integration process hasn't really changed that much. So yeah, if there's a lot of interest in React and Django, let me know in the comments of this video, not necessarily in the live chat, but the comments of the video, so I can know, because I'm definitely curious if there's a lot of people who want to see more Django and React stuff, like a full project. Do some live open source contribution videos so that beginners can have an understanding of how it's done. Oh, that's really interesting. So actually contribute to a package that's open source. Yeah, what open source packages would you guys want to see? I would love to hear that. From India, hey Stardust, nice to see you. Rogerio, no, I pronounced that incorrectly. Hi from Brazil, nice to meet you, nice to see you. Jovid, do I spend time on Leet Code? I do not spend time on Leet Code. Do you? Do a lot of people? I know it's popular, but I'm curious how many people that are here with us today spend time on that. What is the future of remote jobs in Django or Python and web development? Oh yeah, they're accelerating a lot, right? So we're going to see a lot more remote jobs, in part because of what happened with COVID and all the lockdowns and stuff like that. The other part is because software tends itself to be remote, right? It lends itself really well to be remote, and it makes a whole lot of sense to do so. So I'd imagine that we're going to see a lot more of this. Now, in terms of like entire teams being remote, who knows? Like, I can't say for sure, but software developers and web developers, especially, being remote makes a lot of sense. The other thing is there's talent everywhere in the world, and really, really good talent. So like companies anywhere in the world should be hiring the best people they can get their hands on. And so a lot of that is elsewhere. It's remote. So it certainly makes sense that we're going to see the continuing of a lot more remote jobs in the future for all sorts of things. Django and Flutter course, again, same sort of thing with the React side. The integration's not a whole lot different. It just would be on the Flutter side that's a little bit more specific. So yeah. Django security, what in particular are you referring to here? Because it's kind of a broad topic. So let me know. You know Docker and Docker Compose, and you did some project on Docker. Great. Okay, so where do you go from here for Kubernetes? Now, what I would learn about is how to do deployments, and then from deployments, how to expose services or load balancers. That's like a key first step, I would say. So when it comes to Kubernetes itself, using a managed Kubernetes version will give you all of Kubernetes without the overhead of getting it installed and setting it up on the various machines. So managed Kubernetes, you can go to Linode, DigitalOcean, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud Platform, Azure. All of them have a managed Kubernetes offering that basically means that you just have Kubernetes already running on 3 different virtual machines, and you can just, have a deployment run. And a deployment essentially just has your Docker image run for you, and Kubernetes does that. So I have a lot more resources coming out for it. If you are interested in the Django side of it, check out my Django plus Kubernetes video on my YouTube channel. That one I think will be really good for you. So that is right. I mean, you're already on my YouTube channel most likely, but if you're not, cfe.sh/YouTube, that's where you will find that Django and Kubernetes series. And of course, if you're not already following me on Twitter, hit me up there. I love hearing from you guys. Doing public tweets are definitely like a little bit easier to see than the private messages, because I get a lot of spam in private messages. So I often lose those things. And then also, if you look for me at Justin Mitchell, that's another place. That's like my personal one, where this other one, the other one is the Coding for Entrepreneurs one, more for this channel and for those topics. So yeah, hit me up there. Anyways, hopefully that answers your question about Kubernetes and where to start and all that. There's definitely a lot to it, and there's a lot you can do, and it can get really complicated, or you could do it pretty simply. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Kubernetes or Docker, it's a way to deploy your software. It's a modern way, and it's incredibly powerful, because what you focus on then is your code. Then you give instructions in terms of a Docker file. Those instructions help Docker build a container and isolate your code from other code, which is fantastic, versus using like just a virtual machine or something like that. Definitely have a lot to say about that. And then Kubernetes will run the container for you. And there's a lot of different ways on how to do that as well. Anyways, so you're from Nigeria. Solomon, nice to meet you. How can you use Bootstrap, CSS, and Sass with Django to create a responsive web design and sign up? Okay, so Bootstrap itself will give you the responsiveness. I definitely cover this in a number of places. But the idea is Bootstrap has classes that you can use that are written in CSS that you can just use out of the gates. You don't have to mess with Sass in that case. But if you were to start using Sass, use it, like actually write the Sass code in a separate environment, or a separate window altogether, separate project from your Django project, and then just have the Sass being built into where you store your static files on Django. That's how I do it, and how I recommend you as well, because more than likely your Sass related things or your CSS related things, you're not going to be working on them probably as much as you will be on the Django stuff. Or at least that's been my experience. I mean, maybe front end developers would say the opposite of that, but even with that, even if you were mostly working on your Sass and CSS, you would probably want that separate anyway. So, hey, what's up from Somalia? Nice. Hey, India. Yes, escrow, hold some money, and you plan to use Fast API. Yeah, that's cool. So using Fast API, just be aware that you're going to have to figure out how to securely manage users. That is authentication, their sessions, and all that. It's definitely possible in Fast API. It just doesn't necessarily work out of the gates. So that's why I would maybe recommend Django, unless you really want to learn and master Fast API. Then use that. It's great. They both are great. Yeah, so cloud native project contribution. Interesting. Do you have one in mind? A cloud native project in mind for me to contribute to? What do I think on an advanced Flask series? Like, should I do an advanced Flask series? Yeah, I mean, I definitely could do one. I just trying to think as to what I would cover in there and not use Fast API, right? So like Flask is cool. It's great. It's mature. Fast API has a lot more steam for it, as in a lot more interest in Fast API. They do a lot of the same sort of things, but Fast API was built with async in mind. AWS for Django. So AWS does a lot of things, so you have to be a little bit more specific as to what you mean there. When it comes to Django projects in a production environment, then there are Django templates still used, or mostly Django REST framework with a separate front end. Yeah, so this has been a common question like recently, because the Django REST framework is incredibly popular and incredibly powerful. I would say the vast majority of Django projects are still using Django templates, or the Django templating engine, or maybe Jinja templates, which are just a replacement, a drop-in replacement for Django Django templates. And also because of this really great tool called HTMX. Right. So check out HTMX, because it's a fantastic way to do dynamic loading in your Django project. Right. So like loading an element, like a like button, or a voting mechanism, or search, or like autosave forms, or all sorts of things. There's definitely a lot in there with HTMX, which means you don't necessarily have to use the Django REST framework unless you're building a full-on front end using something like React.js or Vue or Angular. But it's not always necessary. Sometimes it's over engineering a problem that just simply does not exist. And that's true because of vanilla JavaScript. That's pure JavaScript. jQuery, yes, jQuery is still used, surprisingly. And then also HTMX. HTMX is the modern solution to dynamicness in all sorts of web applications without writing a ton of JavaScript, but still allowing for the JavaScript-like interactions. Hopefully that answers your question. Do I offer purchasing power discount for lower income lower income countries? Yeah, I do not have the bandwidth to set up something that will change the price for anything that I do for everyone in the world. So it's just one price at this point. Thanks for the question. And I mean, honestly, it's well worth it. Like if you put the time in, it's definitely well worth it. So, you might consider that, let's see here. Future of Django with AI. Yeah, I think what we'll see a lot more is Django interacting with a lot of REST API services that have AI as their core service and value. As far as writing Django itself, we'll see a lot of that as well. We'll see a lot more AI services that come out that will help you write Django code and build a Django project. I can't wait because I have context as to what should happen, right? So the biggest thing as a software developer, or something you'll have to learn, is figuring out if this should even be built, right? The why of it all. The how is attainable. Now, I think all of us want to learn more about the how. That's probably why you're here talking to me, right? That's how I feel. I want to learn more about the how. But once I understand the how well enough, then it becomes about the why. Like, why are we building this feature or this product or this service or this business even, right? So understanding that why will make it a lot easier to start building all of your different things. And AI will definitely help us do that much, much faster, which I think is just going to make us as Django developers that much more valuable once we start learning the AI of it all, to just increase our speed as to how fast we could deliver all of the things, all of the business value that comes with something like Django. But realistically, it's not going to replace that. I can tell it's not going to replace web applications anytime soon, because web applications exist as a layer to communicate between people and software, right? So it's a layer that's really, really necessary. And we'll see this for a long, long time coming, I think. And Django is definitely one of the best, in my opinion. Thank you for all your efforts and great tutorials. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. Hey, what's up? Nice to see you today as well. John? Is it John or Jane? Hey, from New Zealand. Nice, Ran. What time is it out there? Ethiopia. Nice. Is Flet good? I don't know. No idea. What's Flet? It's probably silly that I don't know that, but hey, that's why I'm here. I'm here to learn more about what you guys are interested in. What about applying solid principles or design pattern architectures in real world Django project? Oh yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look into that and maybe get back to you, or potentially make some content in that realm. Pavel from Russia. Hey, what's up? Nothing. Can you make a tutorial on a data structures and algorithms with Python? Yeah, DSA. I keep on wanting to think data science analytics or analysis, but DSA is the new term for data structures and analytics. And how can we implement on a Django project? Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I probably need to cover data structures at some point, just to help answer this question. I get this question enough that I probably need to start doing it. Django testing tutorial needed. I have a number of them. I'm pretty sure what might be interesting for you is I did a Django bootcamp a couple years ago, and I did testing in it, but I also solve live a glitch or an error from one of those tests. And that might be really, really interesting for you too. Testing is not always the most fun thing to watch. That's why I don't necessarily cover it all the time. But I have a lot that are out there. I have a series on my website called Django Flicks that goes into it, in pretty good detail, I'd say. So my website is cfe.sh if you were not already aware. So Django Flicks is the name of that one. Let's see here. Oh yeah, so we just talked about this. So SAS and CSS have nothing to do with sign up, nothing to do with authentication or Bootstrap. Django itself is going to be the one doing the sign up. The dynamic sign up part of it would be JavaScript. So that's HTMX, like I mentioned before, which is actually written in JavaScript. You can do vanilla JavaScript. You can do, using React or Vue or something like that to do the authentication as well. What are my thoughts on Heroku's changes to pricing? Yeah, so it's unfortunate because they for a really really long time were a great place to learn how to deploy applications into production. I would imagine a lot of their students became customers as well because there's a limitation as to how much you could have done with free stuff on Heroku. That being said, there are a number of alternatives out there, including open source alternatives. There's definitely a lot of cloud providers that give a generous amount of credit so you can still learn how to do it for free and all that. But Heroku is not the startup it once was. It's now a big part of Salesforce.com. So it's just a big part of a big organization. So, these things happen. They cut ties with certain things, and who knows? Perhaps with the developer outlash, they'll revert back in a year or two. But as of now, it sort of makes sense that they did that. It's unfortunate, but it sort of makes sense. So happy to chat more about it if you'd like. Flet again. What is the Linux Foundation? Yeah, so it's a nonprofit organization that manages, I don't know how many Linux distributions at all, but I believe they manage at least a Linux distribution like Ubuntu. I don't think it's Ubuntu. I'm pretty sure it's not. But it's nonprofit foundation. I don't know that much about it, actually, come to think of it. Best alternative to Heroku. There's a lot of them out there. So it's depending on what it is that you're trying to do exactly. To me, I've now leaned heavily on because of stuff like Heroku doing this. Learn how to deploy on a virtual machine. That will give you the absolute most resiliency because then you can switch to other virtual machines. Virtual machines are basically what Heroku ran on, right? So they ran on a bunch of different virtual machines on your behalf. Once you know how to run on a virtual machine, you won't really think about platform as a service as much like Heroku. That being said, like my go-to alternative would be two of them, DigitalOcean app platform or like Google Cloud Run. But both of those are a little bit more complicated to set up than Heroku. But the greatest part about both of them is they are made with containers in mind, Docker containers in mind. So that to me is like a really solid alternative to Heroku, although Heroku can run Docker containers as well. But Google Cloud Run and DigitalOcean app platform, both of those are container first technologies where Heroku isn't. Good questions. Can I make a Selenium bot web app to upload a photo on Instagram? Yes, you can. Let's see here. I'm trying to remember if I covered it in my 30 days of Python series, that specifically. I don't know if I did. I'm pretty sure I did not. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did not. So I would say that learn what I did on 30 days of Python, which is on YouTube, and see how I did the Instagram stuff there. From that, you can, I think, figure out how to upload a photo. If you can't figure out from there, I think you'll have to maybe research a few other blog posts. There's probably someone out there that has done it. But at least that video that I have will give you a foundation to get there, most likely. What are recommendations for an e-commerce framework based on Python? One that can be extended through custom modules and configuration. I would recommend that you build this in Django and build it from scratch because e-commerce itself is just a bunch of databases interacting with each other at the end of the day. That Django bootcamp, that live bootcamp I mentioned before, does a really minor version of this. So it's like 10 days, which I think it was maybe like 12 to 13 hours worth of content that you could go through and, roughly speaking, build an e-commerce application. And if you want to go more than that, I have an older series, but still relevant, called E-commerce 2 on my website too. Or maybe it's just e-commerce course, actually. Yeah, I think so. Anyways, so that's also available too. But the code is all on GitHub, on my GitHub. So if you go to cfe.sh/GitHub, you can see my e-commerce code that's on there. So I will say I'm not going to be here a whole lot longer. I got to get running soon. But if you do have any questions or anything like that, and I missed them, definitely be sure to subscribe and check out the next live events. And feel free to comment on this video later, like in the actual comments, not the live chat, right? Feel free to do that. And perhaps we can address them in the next one. I probably need to do follow-up questions from the last live event or something like that. But as of now, I don't have it. And I accidentally scrolled to the bottom of all of these questions. Can I make a tutorial of a real-time app, not a chat app? Thanks for the suggestion. At some point, I probably need to, huh? What is going on here? I really just lost all of the comments. This happens every time I do something live, isn't it? Give Linode a try. Yes, I agree with Libby. Linode is solid. What do I think the next trend for UI is for Django, React, or other? HTMX, I think, is the next big wave because it works with React, it works with Vue, it works with whatever other JavaScript you might need. So yeah, I would say HTMX. I'm doing Django and you're slowly moving on blockchain or data science. What do I recommend? I personally would recommend that you go down the rabbit hole of what you find interesting and what you can make progress on. So if you find blockchain more interesting, do some stuff with that and see where you go. If you don't find it that interesting, then check out data science and try that out. They're both very compelling fields and there's a lot of demand for both of them. Hey, Rohan, what's up? Can I make a tutorial? Oh, we just talked about this. Let's see here. Can we use multiple databases in Django at some time? Yes. So in your database declaration, you can add additional databases on there. And then in your model declaration, you'll have to update your manager and query set to use that other database. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward to do. And the Django docs are, I think, pretty good there. So you have your first interview for a junior Django developer. Advice on how to prepare for it. I would say look at all of the top questions on Stack Overflow for Django. And if you can answer those things well, maybe the top 50 even on Stack Overflow for Django, if you can answer those well, great. Then I would look at the top 50 for Python, maybe. That's what I would say. At least that's how I would start. Where to look for a job? That's a good question. I feel like Stack Overflow has jobs as well. I don't have a really good answer for this one, actually. maybe look for a freelancing job like on Upwork or something like that first before you really start looking for these other jobs. But the thing is, like, a lot of companies hire for Django at various times of the year. So you could always try to make yourself a position from a previous company that wrote something as far as a job posting. Microservices application tutorial with Fast API and Django would be helpful. Yeah, this would be something that I would probably leave up with, Kubernetes or something. But I actually did do this in the Try Django series. There's a part of it where I kind of stop and build a Fast API microservice to do OCR. It's totally on my channel right now, so check it out. Have I tried Wagtail? I haven't tried it for a few years. I did talk to somebody who works on it all the time and really, really likes it. When I tried it a few years back, I didn't love it. So partially because it like kind of diverted from how I use Django, but maybe it evolved a lot, and people who do use it tend to like it a lot. So take that with what you will. Yeah, cool. Mock interviews on some YouTube channel. Great. What are our thoughts on using public APIs? Can we use them as earn something? I'm not sure what you mean with the second question, but public APIs are great. It's a good way to build your application without spending too much time developing or getting all of the data and all these other things. Flet, the fastest way to build Flutter apps in Python. Oh, interesting. Let me just look this up real quick. Flet and Flutter. It's cool. This looks great. I'm going to try this out. Thanks for the recommendation. It looks compelling. Yeah, yeah, I would say it does. I mean, I don't know for sure I would use this, but um, let's see here. I'm gonna actually show you guys this too. There we go. Okay, so the fastest way to build Flutter apps in Python. Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks compelling, um, and fairly straightforward, right? So if that's one single module there, the one thing that I guess like is a downside to me is starting to build graphic user interfaces in Python. I don't think Python's ever done it particularly well myself. I like using PyWebView for GUIs. So PyWebView. I'm sure you've seen a tutorial from me potentially on that one. But PyWebView is, to me, a great way to make a desktop application. Although I would imagine this is not made for desktop applications, but rather for mobile applications. Oh, and desktop. So you can do both. So native mobile applications, I would imagine. No front end experience required. I do actually really like that. It's just in my experience, since I know front end pretty well, the idea of using Python to write front end is not always great. Like I really like using HTML and CSS. I think it's a really easy way to do a lot of like really compelling front end things. But this Flet thing looks really really cool. Definitely gonna have to try it out. Thank you for that recommendation. Got to know Talk Python Kennedy. Huh. Not sure what you mean by that. Hello. Plenty of vids on PyTest. Absolutely. That is also true in relation to testing Python or Django projects. How do I know if I'm building my projects to standards? I think a big part of that would be putting into production and also getting direct feedback from experts that would be able to give you feedback. The other part is read other people's code. Go on GitHub and see if your code matches very similarly to their code. And if it doesn't, ask yourself why all the time throughout. What are they doing differently that I should be doing? Type of thing. I do that still. What is GIL, multiprocessing and multi-threading? This is something that we'll have to leave for another time. Good questions, though. I'm just about to leave, just about to hop off, and gonna have to jump off of that question. I'm definitely avoiding it. I live because it would take a while to sort of explain it. I live in Russia and I don't have a job today. The Russian war. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that, man. That's frustrating. I don't know how I could help, but I do hope that you know the war ends and you're able to get back to work. Is it possible to run API which comes from the Django REST and also a socket with yes? Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. So can you build a Django REST API as well as having sockets being run with Django channels? Yes. In some cases, you might need separate processes to do so, right? So you might need a WSGI server running one version of your app and then an ASGI server running another version of your app. But for Django, the ASGI server can actually run the WSGI stuff as well. So it can handle both things too. So you don't necessarily have to have two processes, if I remember correctly, for both of these. You might need to. I haven't needed to work with Django channels or asynchronous Django recently. So it's like not top of mind, but it's either going to be two processes or one through ASGI. Hopefully that answers the question. Do I have tutorials that covers ORM? Thanks, Aziz, for the question. So object relational mapping. This is what Django does with a SQL database, right? So when you write a Django model, the Django ORM is what helps you integrate that or bring it into your SQL database. So I do cover the Django models a lot. I just don't say Django ORM or Django ORM. So Django REST framework plus Rabbit QL. Interesting. Let's see. Can we make a system like, I'm assuming you mean ERP or management business for inventory with the help of Django? Yes, you absolutely can. Django is like a blank canvas. You can do all sorts of things with it because it's written in Python. And you could definitely do an ERP with Django. You want to sell websites with monthly payments, people will rent their website from me and I'll own everything. Okay, cool. Good luck. Your Django tutorials helped you a lot. Great. I'm glad to hear it, Oliver. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Be careful with automation with Instagram. Lately, they have increased a lot of their spam and bot detection. Yes, this is true. And they should. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't attempt to do our own automations with Instagram. I think their API should be a little bit more open so that you can just use their API and not have to use bots, but they don't want to do that for whatever reason. Let's see. Can we test load requests on Django? Yes, there's a number of ways to test load in a Django project. I'm going blank on the package that I like to use. Oh well. It's not Turtle. I think it's not. I don't remember. The load testing stuff is things that you might want to do from time to time. I probably should do it more now that you're asking this question because I should know the package off the top of my head, but I don't remember it right now. An AI tutorial in the future? Yes, I already have a number. Let me know what specifically you're trying to do, and we will talk about it. Django and Web3. If you mean Django and like blockchain, it doesn't. I mean, like how? They're different. Where to look for a job as a junior? You already asked this, I think. Okay, so looks like we've got some good stuff going. Here's probably the last question I'll answer because I got to run. But thanks for hanging out, especially if you're in another part of the world where it's the middle of the night. I really appreciate you coming out and chatting with me. But let's go ahead and answer True Coding's question. You've been studying as an AI developer for 2 years, but you don't know what you're doing. You love programming. Do you think it's worth to continue study? Okay, so you feel like you don't know what you're doing. Got it. So I would say stick with it because 2 years is not actually that long for AI. AI is a challenging thing, right? So if you keep studying, if you are interested, I should say, but if you are interested and you want to actually be a part of it, keep studying, keep trying, keep making new projects, try and actually solve real world problems that you might have with what you are studying. Now, that to be said, if you love programming and not necessarily AI, there's a lot of things you can do in programming that isn't AI, including things that like kind of help somebody who does AI get ready to do the things that they need to do or the things that they do well, helping a data scientist. So, I think there's a lot of people that quit really good things too early because it's hard, right? And I think the hard part about hard things is sticking to them until you get them. Personally, so that's my advice. Hopefully that answers your question. Where to start to become a Django developer? Only your courses, how to start step by step. Yes, so I have a lot of courses on how to become a Django developer. To me, the thing is you decide a project that you want to build, that you want in the real world, and you build it. Once you do that, then you can start learning all of the things you need to learn with Django. And I also personally have a lot of courses that can help you along those lines that are mostly built into being building a project, right? So you can actually know the context of everything and all that. So anyways, that's going to be it, guys. I got to run. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for all of the questions. I had a really good time chatting with you, and I learned about a really, really awesome new tool. This might be something, right? Or, well, I got to point the correct way. It's unintuitive. But anyways, so yeah, I really appreciate the suggestions, the questions. There's certainly things that I want to do more on the channel itself, more than just, these live streams. I do enjoy doing these, but I want to get back to doing tutorials and stuff, but I've been really heavily working on a couple of other content pieces that I'll have out hopefully soon. We'll see. But anyways, thanks so much for watching. Look forward to seeing you guys next time. If you haven't subscribed already, of course, what are you thinking? What are you doing? Get all your friends to subscribe. I really, at some point, hope to hit 1 million subscribers. I'm so far away though. So definitely subscribe. We'll chat soon. Thanks again for watching and see you guys